Hello everyone and welcome to my The Bold Fans channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Spoilers for the CBS serial opera The Bold and the Beautiful, B&B, suggest that there will be some shocking revelations and intense suffering. As the summer action intensifies, several B&B characters will experience suffering, rage, and other emotions. In light of this, let's discuss 4 devastating blows that appear to be imminent. These are the primary characters who will be impacted by the catastrophic news that will be revealed. 1. Steffy's betrayal of Carter crushes Finn to begin with. It appears that Steffy Forrester Finnegan, Jacqueline MacInnes Wood, betrayed John Finn Finnegan, Tanner Novlan, with Carter Walton, Lawrence St. Victor. When Steffy lost her temper with Finn over Sheila Carter, Kimberlyn Brown, she removed her wedding band, but she is still married and ought to be keeping her word. Instead, Finn might be devastated to learn that Steffy is about to undress for a sultry encounter with Carter. 2. Carter's infatuation with Steffy causes Daphne sorrow. Daphne Walton, Muriel Hilaire, is prepared to leave Carter and return to Paris, but only because she is going crazy with her diagnosis. Daphne might apologize and make an effort to put things right after she calms down and possibly begins to think more clearly. At that point, Daphne could realize how simple it was for Carter to give in to some Steffy desire. Given that Daphne views Steffy as her best friend, that might cause Carter's wife further sorrow. 3. Sheila worries that she will never be able to reunite with Finn and Hayes. She intended to become a true member of Finn's family, but her journey to Monaco ended up ruining his marriage. Finn tries to mend his relationship with Steffy, but if she truly develops feelings for Carter, even more devastation may be in store. Sheila started the entire chain reaction, so Finn might hold her accountable and give up on any remaining hope. To put it another way, Sheila might soon fear that she will never be able to reunite with Finn and Hayes Finnegan, Brian David Garlick. 4. Will's loved ones are devastated by his accident. With Will Spencer, Crew Morrow, it is likely that he will crash his motorcycle sometime this summer. The episode has hinted just how much Katie Logan Spencer, Heather Tom, despises Will's risky bike. If Will's crash becomes a significant medical story, he might be admitted to the hospital in critical condition. The emotional fallout could involve Katie, Melissa Dillon, Sydney Bullock, Electra Forrester, Lania Grace, and Bill Spencer, Don Diamont. According to teasers for The Bold and the Beautiful, these plot events and more might cause heartbreak to strike hard across the canvas. The unexpected arrival of life-altering news is one of the most damaging forces in the glittering but dangerous world of Los Angeles fashion and family dynasties. A number of the main characters on The Bold and the Beautiful have had their lives completely upended by disclosures that go beyond love rivalry or boardroom treachery. The Forresters, Logans, Spencers, and those around them are forced to face unimaginable futures as a result of these 4 devastating blows, which come not as far-off dangers but as close-knit explosions. The destruction that is taking place on the painting, the emotional impact that is already apparent, and the questions that now loom over all significant relationships are all examined in more detail in what follows. Daphne Rose Walton and her husband Carter get the first, and possibly most visceral, blow. The goal of having children has been the focal point of the newlyweds' months-long efforts to create a life together. The nursery has been painted. The furniture has been selected. Quiet evenings have been filled with discussions about names and futures. Then, with clinical finality, the medical reality emerges. Daphne discovers that she is going through early menopause, which has already started to cause her ovaries to shut down. The devastating effect of the diagnosis is that she might never become pregnant. The news is given in a subtle yet violent scene. As Lee Finnegan, Daphne's substitute doctor, explains the results, Steffy stands by to offer support. Anybody in Daphne's shoes would ask the same questions. Is it still possible? Do therapies exist? The responses are not very consoling. The emotional facts come in waves, but the medical facts are obvious. For months, Daphne has been perplexed as to why conception has been so challenging, blaming the difficulty on timing or stress. Every previous setback is reframed as a sign of something permanent when she finds out that her body has already advanced past the possibilities of a natural pregnancy. Carter's reaction shows the severity of the situation as well as his personality. He has always talked about the happiness of growing a family with the lady he loves and about having a house full of kids. He must accept the loss of that particular vision as a result of the diagnosis. He stays put. Rather, he starts the meticulous process of reminding Daphne that there are alternative options, such as adoption, surrogacy, and alternative conceptions of parenthood. However, they both realize that although such options are feasible, they do not represent the future they had already started to envision. The loss of a biological kid is simply one aspect of the grief. Another is the abrupt revision of a shared narrative that they had already begun to tell themselves. The second devastating blow is delivered directly to Brooke Logan and spreads throughout the complex web of Logan and Forrester allegiances. It was never going to go unnoticed that Hope had decided to quit Forrester Creations and become the head designer of the competing House of Logan. The shock was delivered in front of both family members and industry eyes during the fashion show's public reveal. After decades of navigating the complex intersections of ambition, love, and blood ties, Brooke is confronted with a betrayal that feels particularly personal. In addition to selecting a rival business, her daughter did it covertly with Katie's and the larger Spencer-Logan Alliance's silent support. The fallout is unfiltered. The exchange between Brooke and Hope is hardly a calm debate about career aspirations. Within the gates of Forrester Creations, a mother is demanding to know how her child could conceal such a secret and how she could put her job ahead of the family that nurtured her. The impact is not lessened by Hope's justifications, which include artistic freedom, the opportunity to create something of her own, and the convoluted background of her position within the Forrester hierarchy. Beyond Hope, Brooke feels betrayed by Katie, whose part in making the relocation possible feels like a deeper twist on a sisterly knife. The formerly cohesive family is now divided, with accusations of betrayal coming from all sides. A more subdued but no less agonizing version of the same shock is absorbed by Eric Forrester. Donna, his wife, was aware of Hope's intentions but decided to keep quiet instead of alerting the family. Eric has multiple layers of pain. He feels caught off guard on a professional level as the father who has seen Forrester Creations weather decades of storms. As a husband, he finds it difficult to accept that Donna put her sister's trust ahead of their open marriage. At Forrester Creations, the subsequent damage control meetings focus more on handling the emotional devastation than on strategy. Every commercial decision is clouded by personal grievances due to the toxic environment created by Ridge's rage, Brooke's agony, and Eric's silent disappointment. Will Spencer and Electra Forrester are at the center of the third disastrous development. Their relationship has always resided at the tense nexus of two influential families. But the most recent break feels definitive. Electra is pushed past the verge of reconciliation when she learns of Will's secrets, especially those pertaining to the Spencer family's business dealings and his subsequent intimacy with Dylan. She leaves. She makes a clear distinction. Will encounters only opposition when he tries to clarify, apologize, and take back the future they had previously discussed. The heartache is complex and reciprocal. Will is devastated by the loss of a relationship he still desires, made worse by the realization that his own decisions played a part in its breakdown. Electra bears the burden of both the greater family pressures that have always hampered their relationship and romantic disappointment. Complicating matters further is the presence of Dylan, who has never concealed her affections for Will. Will and Electra's distance from one another is further cemented as what started out as consolation following a breakup threatens to turn into something more lasting. Their discussions become repetitive. They speak over one another. They eventually come to the silent, agonizing realization that pushing the connection will only make their agony worse. The fourth blow comes in the shape of repercussions that affect several individuals simultaneously on an emotional and professional level. During a time already marked by a family conflict, Brooke receives painful personal news from Fanny, which exacerbates the public turmoil. Sheila's persistent presence overshadows Steffi and Finn's attempt to regain intimacy in Monaco, transforming what ought to have been a healing vacation into yet another battlefield. Everyone who is still involved in their past must make difficult decisions as a result of Deacon and Taylor becoming closer. Even secondary relationships are strained. When Deacon declares he is not ready, Remy's expectations for a rekindled connection are destroyed, leaving another character to deal with rejection in the midst of more significant storms. These 4 devastating events are all connected by their closeness. They are not remote health concerns or abstract corporate setbacks. They all get right to the heart of these characters' self-perceptions and destinies. Motherhood needs to be redefined by Daphne. Brooke has to face the boundaries of sisterly loyalty and maternal influence. Will and Elektra have to acknowledge that love is insufficient to fill the voids left by their families and decisions. In response, the surrounding characters, Carter, Eric, Donna, Steffi, Finn and Ridge, are compelled to modify their own expectations and emotional commitments. Every significant player's fortitude will be put to the test in the coming weeks. Carter's pledge to support Daphne throughout different routes to parenthood will be evaluated in light of their ongoing silent anguish. The Logan Forrester dynamic will be altered for years if Brooke's anger finally softens into some sort of understanding or hardens into a long-lasting alienation. The Spencer household's mental state will depend on Will's next actions, including whether he lets himself progress toward Dylan or stays mired in his desire for Elektra. Long after the initial shock of Hope's defection has subsided from the news, the wider professional conflict between Forrester Creations and House of Logan will continue to take personal costs. The convergence of personal suffering and societal repercussions is what makes soap operas so successful. The crash is quite severe in this chapter of The Bold and the Beautiful. Characters who previously thought they understood the principles of love, loyalty, and ambition are now forced to rewrite those rules in real time as 4 distinct stories of heartbreaking news come together to form a single season of pain. The cost is already known, but the result is yet unknown. In a world that values boldness and beauty, the times when both are taken away frequently leave the most enduring impressions. Few weeks offer as much destruction as the current run of episodes in the sun-drenched world of Los Angeles fashion and entangled family relationships that characterize The Bold and the Beautiful. News and revelations that undermine security, alter relationships, and leave emotional devastation in their wake slam 4 significant characters. Drawing on the developing plots that have kept viewers hooked to their screens, the following is a thorough examination of those 4 devastating hits. Daphne Rose and the silent devastation of a future she and Carter Walton had started to envision together are at the center of the first heartbreaking development. Through their shared work at Forrester Creations and their unwavering support of one another during the many family storms, the couple had been cautiously working toward creating something long-lasting for months. On a canvas typically filled with betrayal and power plays, Carter's quiet commitment and Daphne's growing confidence formed a rare pocket of stability. When medical tests revealed a diagnosis that neither of them anticipated, that steadiness was destroyed. Early menopause. During what should have been a normal consultation, the words fell with clinical finality. Nothing could change the fact that Daphne's ovaries had almost stopped working far earlier than anticipated, even though Lee Finnegan broke the news to her with professionalism. Infertility, or at the very least a significantly reduced window for biological offspring, was the practical result. The whole event was conveyed by Daphne's expression in the aftermath. Shock, bewilderment, and then the gradual loss of hope. Although she had avoided discussing children in every talk, the prospect had been so palpable that she and Carter had started to sketch out what their own family may entail. Carter's remark demonstrated how deeply committed he was. He began by concentrating on her suffering rather than retreating into pragmatic conversations about options or deadlines. He cancelled appointments, remained near her, and eventually made it plain that he would support her no matter what happened, whether it was looking into medical possibilities, adopting a child, or just learning how to deal with the loss of a certain desire. Additionally, Steffi Forrester intervened, providing the sisterly presence that is becoming more and more uncommon in the Forrester family. However, the psychological anguish of discovering that a body has abruptly changed the norms cannot be eliminated by even the strongest support. This was not a short-term setback, as evidenced by Daphne's silent weeping and the way she clung to Carter in subsequent moments. The future they had begun to claim was permanently rewritten. The second devastating blow struck Brooke Logan directly and spread to her daughter Hope. There was always going to be conflict over Hope's choice to leave Forrester Creations and take the head designer position at the more assertive House of Logan. Few could have predicted the extent of the mother-daughter rift it would produce. For years, Brooke had worked to boost Hope's self-esteem, support her decisions, and see Forrester as both an emotional inheritance and a family business. It seemed like the ultimate betrayal on both a personal and professional level to witness her own child publicly declare that she was transferring her skills and allegiance to the rival Logan company. The ensuing altercation was unfiltered. When Brooke accused Hope of prioritizing independence and popularity over blood, her voice broke. Brooke's sense of abandonment was only heightened by Hope's attempts to explain that the relocation was about creative freedom and an opportunity to create something of her own. The situation was only made worse by Katie Logan's silent support for her niece. A professional defection turned into a full-scale family civil war as Brooke's rage spread to her sister. Hope fell beneath the weight of her mother's suffering in one especially agonizing scene, the physical result of an emotional toll that had grown intolerable. Liam Spencer provided Hope with a stable presence, but even that was unable to close the gap that had developed between Brooke and the daughter she had always thought would stick by her side. The repercussions are still being felt. Brooke is still grieving and has not come to terms with it. Rather, it has solidified into a resolve to preserve what is left of Forrester's heritage and, more personally, to come to terms with the fact that her child no longer views the family business as home. Observing Brooke's face in the more subdued moments following the yelling altercations, viewers witnessed something uncommon. A lady who has endured numerous marriages, public scandals, and never-ending romantic triangles now facing a permanent loss. Once seemingly impenetrable, the mother-daughter tie is now hanging by a thread, and neither woman seems sure those threads will hold. Will Spencer and Electra Forrester's romance, which went from intense love to an unavoidable terrible end, is the subject of the third devastating development. Family histories and conflicting allegiances always weighed on their romance. Tension was inevitable given Will's ties to the Spencer enterprise and Electra's position within the Forrester universe, but for a while it felt more like gasoline than poison. But secrets have a way of igniting a fire. Electra felt purposefully kept in the dark by Will's failure to fully disclose some family business practices involving Logan's jewelry brand and the hope for the future diamond. When the truth came out, trust was irreparably damaged. Their debates were repetitive and draining. Unable to put up with the feeling that the guy she loved had put family strategy ahead of being honest with her, Electra moved out. Will, who was still incredibly in love, hesitated to accept the conclusion and looked for solace in ways that made things more difficult. When Electra realized the intimacy that had grown in her absence, Dylan's silent presence gave him more than just a listening ear. She slapped Dylan more out of pure sorrow at seeing someone else take up the emotional space she had given up than out of envy. Both of them realized the relationship had reached its breaking point by the time they sat down for what amounted to a last reckoning. They talked past one another, reiterated long-standing grievances, and came to the same silent conclusion. Love was insufficient to overcome the accumulation of secrets, familial pressure, and mutual disappointment. Because neither character is portrayed as a villain, the scenes of their parting bore a special weight. Under the strain of the greater family conflicts, Will's immaturity and Electra's unflexible sense of principle simply proved incompatible. Long after the episode's credits have rolled, there is still a hollow sense from witnessing two young people who once appeared destined for a long-run walk away from one another. The fourth devastating blow, which affects a number of characters after they learn news that pushes them to the edge of their control, is more subtle but no less real. During the business trip to Monaco, Brooke, who is already in shock over Hope's departure, learns more disturbing information from Fanny, which exacerbates her feeling that the ground is always shifting beneath her feet. The news's precise nature is still somewhat unknown, but Brooke's reaction to it is clear. Ridge tries to divert her attention with romance and certainty, but the accumulation of losses cannot be completely erased by even his steady presence. At the same time, Sheila's persistent presence casts a shadow over Finn and Steffi's planned romantic reset trip to Monaco. As new dangers loom on the periphery of their anniversary celebration, and old trauma reappears, Steffi's emotional fragility surges. Sincere sweetness permeates the reenactment of a pivotal previous moment between the couple, yet sweetness becomes more brittle when Sheila is close by. In the week's last episode, Steffi's tears represent a woman who has struggled too much to ever truly unwind and find happiness. Another form of emotional intricacy is provided by Deacon Sharp's developing relationship with Taylor Hayes. In the midst of recent loss for others, he decides to take advantage of a chance and move toward a more long-term commitment. Remy Price's earlier sadness when Deacon made it apparent he wasn't ready to resume their romance still reverberates, serving as a reminder that one person's progress can leave another standing in the rubble of dashed hopes. When combined, these four strokes produce a landscape with real emotional impact. Daphne's future is altered by a medical reality. Brooke must face the idea that her daughter has made a lifelong decision to follow a different course. Will and Elektra acknowledge that their romance has ended in a painful and natural way. Additionally, the larger group of characters keeps taking in tiny shocks that erode their sense of security. The care with which the authors have let the characters experience these developments is what gives them such impact. There isn't a swift comeback or an unexpected story twist that somehow recovers what was lost. Rather, the camera focuses on silent moments of pain, on the long silences that follow yelled accusations, and on the way a hand seeks for another hand and finds it already occupied by sorrow. The genuineness of the suffering is evident to viewers who have followed these characters for years. Brooke feels that her mother's sorrow is justified. There is a real-world parallel to Daphne's medical disaster. The split between Will and Elektra eschews dramatization in favor of the more subdued sadness of two individuals who are unable to overcome their differences.